Hey all, Tim here. Welcome to another cooking class provided by BEG Events. Today we are going to be making some delicious beef and shiitake dumplings. We're going to need a few ingredients, a little bit of thyme, and soy sauce. So let's get to it. So what you're going to need to get started will be a few things, but most of it you can actually find within your fridge or your pantry. Unless you're like a starving college kid, and then good luck. But you're gonna need 1 stick of celery, 1 bunch of scallions, about 2-inch piece of ginger, skin on, about 6 or 7 cloves of garlic. I bought a pound of shiitake mushrooms and just chopped them up really nice and fine. You can see that. A pound of ground beef. You can also use ground pork or ground chicken. But if you are going to buy it, try to get on the fattier side. It'll only help keep the dumpling filling moist. You're gonna need a little bit of cornstarch, some flour. All-purpose flour is perfect. I'm using a little bit of sesame oil. You can use the toasted sesame oil, it makes it even tastier. Some chili oil. If you don't like spice, then you don't need to use the chili oil. Some soy sauce. I use the less sodium or no sodium at all, because then you can add in salt as needed. Some kosher salt. I'm using hoisin sauce. You can also use black bean sauce or a few other things. Black vinegar. You can find it all like in an Asian supermarket or at Whole Foods in the Asian supermarket section. You're gonna need a rolling pin. You're gonna need a cup measure. I'm getting some water already warm, half a cup. I'm gonna also need a bowl, a fork, and then if you actually have a food processor, it'll be a lot easier to make the dumplings, but I'll also show you how to do it without the food processor. A spoon, knife, cutting board, and then saute pan. If you got a large one, if you're making a lot, small one if you're making a little bit. But let's get to it. All right, so this is when the shiitakes have cooked with the celery and ginger and garlic and a little bit of sesame oil, and they're just a sponge. They're just gonna soak up all of that sesame oil and all the juice from the ginger and the garlic. But we're just gonna toss this directly into a bowl. And this is the moment where if you're going to be making just both beef and shiitake mushroom mixed together, just use 1 bowl. We're gonna take our beef, we're gonna toss it in with our ginger and garlic on this side. We're gonna take some of our scallions and divvy it out. So 1/2 a bunch per recipe. If you like a lot of scallions, go ahead and throw in a ton of them. This is the best part, is you can make any sort of dumpling you want. I've seen pastrami and Gruyere dumplings. You can do French onion soup dumplings. You can do peanut butter and jelly dumplings. I don't know. You can do whatever the hell you want. Next step is we're gonna take our soy sauce. I'm gonna eyeball it only because that's what I do. But about a tablespoon into our shiitake. And since this is about a pound of ground beef, I'm gonna use about 1.5 tablespoons for this, only because this is our only salt component. I don't like adding extra salt into it because when you cook it, it gets like really nice and condensed. So about 1.5 tablespoons for the beef. Next is our hoisin. This is what's really gonna like hold everything together. It's a nice thick sauce made from soybeans. And it'll keep everything nice and compact. And we're gonna use about, I really like this stuff. It's like Asian barbecue sauce. So I'm gonna use about 1.5 tablespoons for our shiitake. And about the same for our beef as well. And then chili oil. If you don't like spicy, you don't have to add it in, but I don't mind it. It adds a nice flavor to it. So I'm just gonna do about a teaspoon into each one. All right, you're gonna take your spatula, you're just gonna fold it. Mix it until it's well combined. And you get this nice, beautiful, sticky shiitake mushroom filling. Wash the spatula if you need to, and then we're just gonna fold this one as well. I like to use the blade of the spatula and just cut it. You can use your hands. And if you guys don't like hoisin sauce, if it's just not for you, if you're allergic to soybeans, you can use teriyaki sauce, you can use curry sauce. Literally just go to any section, Asian section of the Whole Foods, and they have a plethora of sauces that you're able to use. If you like barbecue sauce, you can use barbecue sauce. It's the best part about dumplings is you can do whatever you want. It's like pizza. You can add whatever you want into it and it tastes delicious. All right, now that we have this set aside, what we're gonna do is we're gonna toss these in the fridge, let them cool down just a little bit, make sure the garlic and ginger is nice and cool. We're gonna make our dumpling filling dumpling dough, excuse me, and let that rest, and then we'll come back and we'll make some dumplings. All right guys, so for our dumpling dough, this is probably the easiest recipe in the world. All you're gonna need is flour, salt, and warm water, and that's literally it. So if you have a food processor, small one like this works perfectly. It's gonna be extremely helpful. And then if not, fork, bowl will make it work. So the first things first is we're gonna take about a cup. One cup. We're gonna do a food processor, like this. Push the flour aside. We're gonna add in a little bit of salt. I'm gonna do about literally a half a teaspoon. We don't need too much. Just like that. Again, I'm eyeballing it, but use a measuring spoon if you have one, and if you feel more comfortable with it. And then the last and final thing is we're gonna turn it on, just turn on the food processor, just make sure that everything's blended up. If you have a latch for the food processor, you can definitely just add the water in as it's spinning. And if not, then you can just open it up and add it in. Just like that. We're using warm water here. Don't use cold water. It'll seize up the dough and it'll just be really hard to work with. And then, God bless me. And then don't use too hot of water because then it just makes it too pliable and you'll have to add a little bit more flour in. But so you mix it up. Once you start to see it form a ball and it becomes nice and adhesive, just like that, you're done. That's all you need to do. And it's gonna come out looking like this. Might be a little sticky on parts, but it's gonna look just like this. All we're gonna do is we're gonna dust a little workbench with flour. Make sure it's coated nicely. Again, it was a half cup of water, warm water, not too hot, not too cold, and 1 cup of flour. You'll need a little bit more flour for the working of it and rolling it out, but it's gonna look just like that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do it through the bowl. All right, so you're gonna have this dough wrapped up. I use plastic wrap. You can use a towel, anything to just keep it from drying out. So for this, all you're gonna need is a bowl, fork. We're gonna do the same exact measurement as before. So 1 full cup of flour. If it's a little over, it's a little over, it's okay. Set it aside, half a teaspoon of salt. All about the eyeballing of it. We're gonna mix this first just to make sure that it's completely incorporated and the salt's dispersed. And then again, warm water, half a cup. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna mix while we're pouring in. And might get messy. You can use a bigger bowl. We're just trying to make it so that all the flour gets incorporated in and it's just one big ball of dough. Plus it's quarantine, so it's okay to get messy. The goal is we just don't want too sticky of a dough because then it's just too hard to work with. But we don't want too dry of a dough because then it's impossible to work with. You can use your fingers a little bit to mash it up. Really get all that flour in. You get to the point where you got dough, nothing left in that bowl. Set it aside, and we're gonna do the same thing we did before. Flour our workbench, and then just make sure that there's no sticky pieces. That way when we wrap it, it's not gonna stick to the saran wrap. And we know that it's gonna be really easy to work with when we're done. Just kneading a little bit. And there you go. All right guys, after about 10 minutes of letting your dough rest, you're gonna unwrap it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start portioning out into small little balls. That way we can start rolling them afterwards. So for this amount of dough, we're gonna probably get about 25 to 30 dumpling wrappers. If you have a scale, you can absolutely use that, but we're gonna eyeball it, or at least I will eyeball it. We're looking for about a 1/2 ounce to a 1/4 ounce of dough. So it's gonna look just like this. We're gonna roll it into a ball. We're gonna have a little bit of flour sitting here, just to cover our work surface, just like this. I'm gonna turn this for you guys just a little bit so you can see a little better. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our rolling pin. Make sure it's coated with a little bit of flour because the dough will be a little bit sticky. You're gonna flatten it out to a disc shape, just like that. And then the key to rolling out our dough is you're gonna start from almost the middle. You're gonna leave just the center free and untouched. And you're gonna roll out every single side just to keep the center thicker. The only reason is when we start folding our dough over, you're gonna crimp all the edges and that thin part's gonna be crimped together, so it's gonna be thick again, but the bottom needs to be thick to hold all the filling. So here we go. Like this. And all I do is I just turn it, rolling out all the sides. If it sticks, just make sure you coat it a little bit more flour. And we're just trying to keep a nice circle shape It'll be a lot harder to do the rolling if it's not in like almost. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so here you go. You have this nice dough. If you look, you can see that it's nice and thin on the edges, but on the center, it's gonna be just thicker, and that's what we wanna keep. So after you're done, you're gonna take a little bit of the cornstarch. I like to sprinkle just a little bit on the top. And we're gonna roll all of these out, and we're just gonna stack them, but make sure you put a little bit of cornstarch. The cornstarch will keep it from sticking together as you stack. And as you move along, use a piece of saran wrap or a towel to cover the dough that you have folded, just like this, that way it doesn't dry out. All right guys, now for the final part, which is what we've all been waiting for, is how to roll the dumplings. What we're gonna need is a sheet pan or just anything to be able to place the dumplings on. Cornstarch. Again, cornstarch is great because it really avoids anything from sticking. And once the dumplings get the filling in, they're gonna get nice and like moist. Sorry for all those people who hate the word moist. And just really avoid it from sticking. So just a nice little portion of cornstarch on this. You're gonna set this over here. All right, you're gonna need a little glass with some warm water. Your filling. I'm gonna show you guys how to roll the beef, but it's the same principle for the shiitake or for any other filling that you guys have. I've got my dough here, layered with some cornstarch in it. So what we're gonna do is I like to toss it just a little bit to get any excess flour off. And what we're gonna do is, see, they're not the prettiest. It's never gonna be the prettiest. So if you guys don't look like this, don't worry, it'll be fine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some filling. I like about a tablespoon, just like this. You're gonna place it directly in the center here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take some of the water that you got. I like to just use my middle finger, and you're just gonna brush the edges. Brush it so that you notice that it's moist and it's not, there's no flour. That way you know it's gonna stick together. All right. And if you guys really wanna be perfectionists, what you can do is you can take the dumpling dough that you rolled out and you can use a ring cutter, something that will be able to hold a tablespoon of filling, and you can cut them, and that way you get this perfect circle. But we're not perfectionists here. We just like really good old-fashioned rustic dumplings. All right, so the goal here is what you're gonna do is you're gonna fold over. Crimp the edges. Again, it's not gonna be the prettiest thing. Like that. If there's any holes, you can close them up. This dough is extremely forgiving. So you're gonna get a piece of dough that looks like that, all right? Next thing, you're gonna start with your one side, index finger and thumb, and you're gonna use just the thumb for this. What you're gonna do is you're gonna fold in, and make sure that the end of this reaches the fold that you just created, just like that. And then you're gonna do the same thing. Where it ends right here, this piece, you're gonna make it so it folds and meets just like that. And you're gonna go all the way across. When you reach the end, you're gonna place it down like this. There you go, dumpling. Place it on your cornstarch sheet pan, like this, and then you're just gonna cover it with plastic wrap or a towel, and it'll keep it from drying out. And you can either afterwards throw them in the freezer, let them chill on the sheet pan in the freezer first, and once they're frozen, you can throw them in a Ziploc bag all together and they're not gonna stick. Or you can throw them in the fridge until you need them, or you can cook them almost immediately. But that's that, and now we're gonna get on to cooking them. All right, guys, once you have every dumpling rolled out, you can, again, freeze them, store them away, or you can cook them. I'm gonna cook them all because I've got people to feed. But what you're gonna get is a pot of water boiling. If you're gonna cook a lot at once, have a larger pot of water going, just like the one I have right here. And if not, you don't need as much. And also a large saute pan, enough to be able to hold all the dumplings. A little bit of oil. I like to use just canola oil, and about medium heat. Let that get hot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our dumplings in. The important thing here is if you have protein in your dumplings, you want to make sure that the protein is all the way cooked. So about 4 minutes in, we're gonna check one of them to make sure that it's all set. I like to make sure that the protein is cooked all the way through in the boiling process. That way we don't have to worry about it come when we sear them. Other options for cooking these are you can steam them if you have like one of those nice steaming baskets. You steam those, they take about 8 to 10 minutes to steam, if not longer, depending on how large the dumplings you rolled were. And then other than that, let's make sure that it's all the way up. And you can also just steam them and sear them, boil them, sear them, or pan fry them, or deep fry them. If you have a nice deep fryer, deep fry these suckers are phenomenal. So they get crispy on the outside, cooked on the inside, they're delicious. Make sure that you have something to be able to scoop these out with without getting the water. And other than that, we'll speed this process up and then you guys will be able to see them pan fried.
Here's a great look of our dumplings being pan fried right now. I did a lot of them only because I am starving. Once they get golden brown on one side, they are done.
And there you have it, guys. Pan fried dumplings. I added a little bit of pickled cabbage and some scallion and called it a day. So I'm gonna enjoy some food out here with my sumo chopsticks. Look at those guys, it's awesome, right? But can't wait to see you guys on Sunday to make some dumplings. But until then, hope to see you guys at the next one. All right, bye.